Hello and welcome back, everyone, Paladins fans out there. We are ready for our next set of the day. My name is Pretty Hair. I'll be joined by Mr. Vox this time to bring you what I think is going to be a very, very interesting set and one that I absolutely cannot wait to watch. It's Virtus Pro versus Splyce.
It's going to be a little bit spicy now. We've had spicy set one of the day. Fnatic versus Kanga, 2-4-3s.
That was great.
That was a very, very intense set. I mean, I can't say I want anything else from it because I've had two Ice Mines maps today. I've had the long runs.
Where's your shirt, man? Where's your Ice Mines or Give Me Death shirt?
They told me wear this attire, but I should be wearing it underneath. I can just rip it open.
Yes. And I'll wear my Kanga jersey and we'll just rip off together.
Absolutely. I mean, goodness, that would be interesting or whatever. Wherever we're broadcasting to, Nick, we might get into some trouble for that. But regardless of that fact, we're looking at Virtus Pro versus Splyce. We're looking at two teams which are relatively close to the bottom of the pack, Splyce being at the bottom of the pack in North America. And we're going to see if they can pull out something interesting here. Now, what we saw yesterday is that Virtus Pro were a little bit or the day before, Virtus Pro underestimated North America. They underestimated the fact that, you know, Sanguine were going to pull out the more European style of drafting, which is the Victor and the Willow, which at this point, I'm pretty confident in saying people know are good picks. So looking to this for Splyce, I feel like Virtus Pro are coming into this a bit more prepared than they were in that first set.
And it's certainly easy, I think, to prepare against Splyce than it is some of those North American PGS teams, right? You might not always be able to catch the broadcast, but with the PPL, it's very easy to follow. You know exactly when these teams are going to be playing. Anyone from Virtus Pro, the key word is not how, but if they did that preparations. I would say that they're not necessarily a team that doles out respect where it's not necessarily demanded. And this team of Splyce, I mean, they go almost winless. How much respect is Virtus Pro giving them?
I mean, I think you've got to give them the respect and the fact that, like, they're good players, and if you give them an inch, they will try and take a mile, right? And we definitely saw them in that set versus Ryder, where they were just taking every little bit of aggression that they could. We know they have the capability to perform, but they haven't got some of the finesse which other teams have, right? They haven't got the individual 1v1 potential being quite as high. They haven't got the coordination being quite as high. They got some standout players. I mean, you don't want to go toe-to-toe with Ricardo on a sniper,
no.
But will you put them? Will you let them be in that situation in the first place?
We'll have to see.
I don't think so.
I mean, Virtus Pro certainly bringing out some more successful pocket picks. We mentioned the Grok earlier, simply did not work for Zaga. Talent
Shocking.
Far from the story of Virtus Pro's. Grok Perdo made that look amazing. Surrette's the newest support added to this roster. He will certainly have a large burden of shoulder. Mostly known, I would think, for running around and pocketing Elven Path. I talked a lot about the dynamic of VP. Surrette's pockets Elven, Sheepa pockets Perdo, and then this man right here is left to do it on his own. But Vox, the kid sure did do it.
Yeah, and Ninu's just been one of these players that's been around Paladins, whether that's sort of like amateur competitive more recently, but just in Paladins for such a long, long time that they're really difficult to kind of get the jump on, right? They can do their own thing. They're a player that's been playing pubs and ranked for as long as I've been playing Paladins, and that's an impressive thing to be able to say. So they know how to play by themselves, right? They know how to just kind of get everything jazzed up and rolling, and they don't need to be too concerned about the fact that, you know, if these players are pocketing other ones, I can just kind of do my thing for a second unless there's a lot of pressure on me. So looking towards this to be quite interesting, and going back to the thing about Surrette as well. Surrette's a newer addition to Virtus Pro, as many members of that team are at this point, right? Although some of them have played together before. I don't feel like supports have a huge amount of pressure on them in this land, because it's Maldama and it's Ying, right? It's nothing weird. We've seen 2 Grover picks so far, and that's kind of all the spice of life we've had.
I'll be honest with you, I tend to agree. I think Ying has been a little bit more important than Maldamba, but overall, it's kind of like where is that pressure for these support players? What are they bringing to the table besides just healing? They have to do something, and I think most of that comes in the form of communication and being able to survey and see the whole battlefield. The question is, though, is Surrette's as sort of this newbie, sort of rookie support player up against and with teams like Elven Path, Perdo, Sheepa, is he going to be making too many calls for them?
I don't think they'll be making too many calls, but that's why realistically, I don't expect Surrette's to be stuck on champions that are a little bit more complex right there. So as we take a look at the map drafting screen, Nick, we got Fish Market and Timber Mill banned out again. So Fish Market's still the most banned map in the entire tournament at this point. Jack Falls and Serpent Beach being banned out. So the popular European maps taken off the table. Brightmarsh is where we've gone to almost every single time first at this point. It feels like it's being played in most sets.
And it will be Virtus Pro's selection as well. It's worth noting in these best of threes, each team does get a map selection, and then the loser of game 2 picks the map for map number 3 if it comes down to that. So far, it hasn't come down to that, but it has been really, really good. Very, very close 2-0 sets here. Taking a look at Shadow. one of the carries for Splyce, and one of the rookies of this scene admitted that he was indeed nervous yesterday. We'll have to see if that has an effect on today.
On an international land stage, people are twitchy? My goodness.
Yeah.
Somebody tell Lazy.
You certainly can't blame him. Lazy certainly known to get a little nervous here and there, but Shadow maybe hopefully have calmed down a little bit today. Sheepa, certainly not his first rodeo. Certainly probably not a lot of nerves coming through for him.
I wouldn't imagine so. No, this is pretty much standard at this point. And looking at a quick comparison between a couple of especially the off-tank players, I mean, Sheepa has been playing a bit more main tank more recently. Him and Elvin actually filled for a while relatively similar roles, and they've kind of differentiated at this point, but a little bit less damaging overall, more commonly picking up the picks like Inara, just playing the objective, doing the thing that you need to, and letting the wildcard Elvin, who was really that point of contention for the old District 69 team, and the win condition for them is, does Elvin Path perform? Now a lot more reliable, a lot more constrained, controlled, honed down to perfection here.
I gotta say, I really do appreciate the player that Elvin Path has become. I really have seen, and because we've gotten to follow along with this guy for what, 3 years now almost?
It's been a long time. In fact, the anniversary of Closed Beta Paladins releasing does come during HRX this year. I think it's November the 17th, if I'm not mistaken.
And what an evolution it has been for the game, for the players. A lot of fun times along the way, and thank you for riding along with us, and thank you for tuning in here today for the Paladins World Championship qualifying event. Virtus Pro versus Splyce. Here come the bans for game number 1 on Brightmarsh. This is Virtus Pro's map selection again for those of you that may just be joining us. It is Leon and Androxus banned out of Drogos for Splyce and an Inara. So not a very conventional 4 bans here, with only 1 frontliner gone off the table.
Yeah, this is really odd. And Virtus Pro will go ahead and prioritize the Khan very early on. You can see their 50% win rate so far in the tournament, so dropping down from that sort of 80% heyday right at the start on day 1. But overall, just still very valuable, right? I feel like it provides a lot. With the Inara banned out, it is kind of your logical next pick. But you are leaving the Makoa open, and this to me says that Virtus Pro, they have a counter strategy to it.
Certainly does, and for the 2-3 slot here, I don't know why, but I'm smelling like a Cassie Ying here for Virtus Pro. I feel like the Cassie's a pretty good take for Ninu. Ooh, but Splyce snap it up quickly, and that's the next point I was going to make, that this is a very highly comfortable pick for the admittedly nervous Shadow playing the carry role for the Splyce backline.
I think this is fine for Virtus Pro at this point. I think you just draft Barak and Ying and you're pretty safe. Maybe the Torvald though.
I do have Talus open, right? And we know Perdo loves to and can be successful on the Talus. There is not a lot of guys out there that just have Talus in the back pocket, but Perdo has been around for so long. He has seen absolutely every single metagame that has ever been played. There is very, very seldom a time where Perdo is not going to be on a top competitive team, but no, Splyce snap it up again and take one of the popular combinations away from Torvald. So I ask Box, Willow Torvald this time?
Willow Torvald, I think that Willow's just a good pick for this map right now. You are playing into the Talus, which is a little bit more difficult, but Willow's just reliable, right? I'm honestly wondering if we might see a triple frontline with a Ruckus in here, but probably unlikely. Maybe the Victor might come through, more vulnerable to the Talus, maybe an Eevee as well.
Zen?
But the Willow comes through. I want to see some hit scan of some kind, honestly, so that's what I am looking towards right now, rather than anything else. But it is the
Let me
Zen.
just brush the dust off my shoulders here real quick.
I mean,
it's a Ninu pick, man. It
is. I'm just, well, I'm assuming that Nino's going to be playing the Willow rather than anything else, right? Because they're who's typically played the Blasters for so much of the Virtus Pro online season. There's a lack of hit scan pressure right now. Not the worst thing in the world, is you're not dealing with the Drogos, you're not dealing with a Willow that you're fighting against. You don't need that anti-air pressure. But it's a little bit surprising still. Yeah,
it's 2 great combinations for Torvald as well. Virtus Pro, they've really done a good job kind of, you know, bouncing around this draft, bouncing back, and it will be the Maldamba locked in for Splyce as their final selection. I really like what Splyce have been able to put together, but I have to say Virtus Pro have certainly looked good in what they've gotten as well. Let's get the action underway and over to our casters for game number 1.
What are you laughing about?
You know. Same way, I guess.
You look good, man.
Elvin Path, thanks.
Yeah, nice suit, looking
the
fresh.
Combo.
The fresh digs, the combo's beautiful. Nobody rocks a tie clip like William Gormizer Newberry. That's what my grandma told me when I was growing up as a kid, and I've come to learn that it's true. Virtus Pro
That's the age-old tale.
It's the age-old tale and tale. And what will the story be? Speaking of all that, Gore, Splyce, and Virtus Pro. This is actually my most looking forward to, or most excited matchup. The matchup I was most excited about and looking forward to for today. Although I said that many different ways. It's time to see what happens here as Splyce start things off. Nice hook from Vayne, and it might turn in. It is a kill on Deshipa.
Again, this is one of the things I'm wondering more about Virtus.pro than anything. They tend to look down on North American teams. I'm wondering if they're expecting the exact same out of Splyce as everyone else kind of is, but it doesn't seem to be going the rest of the way that time. Ninu on one of his staple picks, this Willow. It's looking solid so far.
What a brawl. Nobody took any objective capture. They all just fought. They're like, how good are you guys? Let's go find out. We'll just brawl here on this point, but it ends up working out for Virtus.pro a little bit more. They have the respawn timer. Sheepa dies early, which means that the fact that Virtus.pro can stabilize without Sheepa there is a boon and tells you this composition is going to be very hard to take down when all 5 members are fighting at full strength.
Ninu is probably where eyes should be, just because hovering around Willow has been so impactful, not only on this map, but just today in this LAN, everything about it. And this is one of the picks that has made Virtus.pro look really good. Ninu has been a phenomenal rookie for this split because of this pickup. And if he can continue this kind of performance here against Splyce that we saw in the fall split, that will make a big difference as he already finds another one, maybe looking to put 2 more on his list.
And that's the veteranship, right? That's Sheepa playing things just longer than you have at a high level. He goes out and allows a couple of shots to be taken onto him just so he can bubble the Willow, because he knows if Ninu gets this extra 30% damage, it's over. 2 minutes and 18 seconds now. Virtus.pro looking pretty good. G-Bunny maybe having some questions, comments, concerns. Also just making sure everything's working on his end technically, so we'll be taking a bit of a pause there. But so far, a little bit of a rough start for Splyce.
Very much at the beginning, it kind of felt like a punch back, then Virtus.pro hits them, they hit Virtus.pro, and then they back off. And they're like, okay, we know how hard you hit now. Is this something we want to be able to jump into? How are we going to approach this fight? And it didn't seem like they had a good plan to get back in there, right? They were like, okay, how do we crack the shell? Ninu just made it so difficult to get past a certain line on the map. There was never an objective chance, really, for Splyce.
You know, the way that they're being so aggressive as far as playing this Willow and putting her into the back line, sending Perdoa Sheepa up towards the front of these fights, there's a lot of room for maybe a G-Bunny flank on this Fernando to really cause some havoc in the back line. I think that maybe this is where you see experience, and you also see some things like just hesitation and nervousness come into play, where he doesn't want to take that risk, die, and then give up the point for free. They'd rather slowball this, even if it's slowly tilting away from them.
A lot that they could try to pick up, but unfortunately for them, at least in the terms of Splyce, they've had a lot of, let's say, just like defeats, downfalls over the course of the split. What we were saying about their matchup earlier this week was that if they really want to feel confident going up against Virtus.pro, that kind of needs to be a stomp. And then it's not. It's not as easy as they would like it to have been, even though they're still able to get rid of Ryder. It wasn't really the best set to consider yourself like warmed up after, right? So now you're going up against probably the second most placed team in the top 4. I'd say Fnatic and Virtus.pro have been pretty much everyone's shoe-ins. Everyone says those are the 2 that are guaranteed to go. Everyone else is a wild card. You can't be too nervous about it. And we know Shadow was feeling a little nervous after a couple days ago. This is going to be maybe a little bit more on edge from them, maybe a little bit more mistakes coming through because of it.
Splyce have not been to LAN ever, this iteration of the roster and this team. They have not qualified at all. This is the last place team in North America. They have been since the inception of the PPL. And this is hopefully a new leaf for these guys. Speaking with some of the Splyce members earlier on, this is something they were really looking forward to. Not so much the fall split towards the end, but this moment right here. And I wonder if they're ready to capitalize on it. Because a lot of people look for that moment, and then when it gets there, it feels just like every other moment of every other day. And you don't realize this is the thing you've been working so hard for. I wonder if that's hit them yet. They're playing against Virtus.pro. This is LAN.
Yeah.
I hope it has. Everything should be on the table right now, even if you're in the winner's bracket.
That full click when it does occur to you, when it's just like, not only are you here,
will
like,
we ever be here again?
But like, you are up against one of the best teams. Like, this is a chance. If you can win, you prove yourselves. Even if you lose, you get to learn so much. There's a lot that you can pick up from a loss, especially against a team at the caliber of Virtus.pro or some team like Fnatic. So I expect to see either Splyce do well here, or if they don't do well here, then to start picking things up in the lower bracket.
Yeah, I think Splyce is definitely a team to look out for. They're going to put up a decent fight, but against Virtus.pro, that's the question. Shadow finding a nice kill there. Talks about nervousness, not showing yet. Elven Path has to wait for the shield to recharge, but there's plenty of recharge for him. Maybe take a look at the loadout that Elven Path is running. I don't think he's running any shield recharge. And he's not. He's going for Hope Guard, Never Surrender, Plate Meal 3. Those are the cards that you see most prioritized in getting the most point value in Paladins for Khan. But he's going to fall nonetheless to Rakata's pressure on Talus.
That Hope Guard 5 is really where my eyes get drawn, because that is kind of the please save me moment, where it's like, my shield's up, heal me, heal me, heal me. Anything you can do to try and get out of the scenario. And that's actually why we've seen Khan in a lot of these fights today and yesterday kind of live through those engagements. Is okay, he gets to that 500 health mark, his shield goes up, and then he's getting that 30% or so increased healing. All of a sudden, he's back to full health, no problem re-engaging at that point.
And I think, you know, these best of threes catch everyone, right? People aren't trying to reveal too much, but they're also trying to get the best draft possible. Dread Serpent here starting things off, and I think this is actually a bit of a show and tell that Splyce are not feeling very confident about being able to hold here. And look at this. This is just a devastating approach here, and Elven Path couldn't look more commanding on the Khan as the battle shout goes through, Never Surrender ringing out through the halls of Brightmarsh, and his team galvanizing towards the objective, getting excited that Virtus Pro are back at LAN and back looking good.
Perdo being on the Zen pick, something we saw Alex play phenomenally earlier. I will give him full credit. Even though the team wasn't able to win, they played that Zen like it was nothing we'd ever seen before, something we haven't seen in a long time. And Perdo being able to pick it up, I think recognizing the damage output he can have, it's just if he can find those 1v1s, if he can make that difference.
Yeah, and right now I think he's making the difference. Would you say, Gore? 11:05?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the difference in my opinion. He spikes up to the high ground, and this is a different thing. We use Spike sometime. Actually, this was the common use of Spike for a long time for Zen. Guillotine got a few buffs here. It's such a blow to touch. When you really read Guillotine, it's damage immunity, 25% extra damage per tick, which is really the talent, and then 15% ultimate charge. It got one of those buffs somewhere. It might have been the ultimate charge. And one of the cool things about it is that Spike before really was just a matter of mobility, an extra dash, Coach Bitey often used to say. We see him pull some crazy whirl spites across Splitstone Quarry to make it from one high ground to the next, but so far it's Virtus Pro who have just dominated this game, and Splyce are looking around at each other. What do we do now?
Sitting up 2-0, 5-1-6, 7-1-6 are the two damage dealers coming down from Virtus Pro. And admittedly, the Wrecker they have, they only actually have a Wrecker 1. It felt like the shields were falling incredibly fast for just the Wrecker 1, but having the COT 2, having a Morale Boost 3 already on Surets, this is going to be a very clean pickup round for them in terms of the abilities they're able to throw out. I mean, that 36% for that ult charge is going to hit 100 real fast.
Well, Torvald goes down early, and that's a good sign for Splyce. And actually, look at this, Shadow. One of the rooks here having a little bit of a moment, but you can't count your blessings too early. I think this is really what Splyce learned last round, is that they had a couple of moments where they got a few kills, but the fight was not over, not for the least, and Ninu's still alive, and that's a Torvald bubble for you. How about 30% extra damage? Ninu says, okay then. He finds one easily. Perdo grabs the other, and now Virtus Pro back in control, and Splyce looking helpless here.
Being able to find the shots does get rid of Rakata. Nice ceiling, will land down and separate. Might even find some good damage spread onto Splyce as they try to re-engage. That 85% was good with comeback mechanic, but it just feels like Virtus Pro, even without it, are going to be able to not only match, but surpass it, no problem.
You know what? G-Bunny's nearby, and he's got the Immortal. That's what I was saying. This is not over. Nice hook as well. It takes Sheepa into the mix. Is he going to go down? Vayne getting pressured out, and there's the Ancient Rage. Splyce have been so patient with their ultimates, but they've lost 2 members now, so this Turtle has to get 2 for 1, 3 for 1, 4 for 1 the value, and he just can't find it. Not enough in the bank account, and 99% is going to tick to 100. Virtus Pro going to lead this one 3-0.
Hey, you remember that Faith Flight that happened earlier?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's recharged already.
Oh, that's too bad.
We're going to be seeing it probably pretty soon here. Ninu is feeling confident again. This Torvald bubble, one of the things Nick had been saying during the Kanga set was Torvald Willow. That's something that you saw NIP just absolutely demolish with at one point. It's something that is definitely to keep in your mind, and this Faith Flight going up in the air, any bubble, and that damage is just going to excel.
Yeah, and admittedly, I expect this to happen where there's a draft that looks better for Virtus Pro than Splyce. I expect Virtus Pro to beat Splyce in the draft. If they didn't, my God, what's the point of having 3 of the oldest Paladin veteran players and most successful players of all time in this esport on the same team? What's the point if you can't win the draft against Splyce? I wouldn't know. Someone have to write it down for me and explain it. But we don't have time for that. The biggest thing, though, is that I expected Splyce to come through with mechanical skill, to go toe-for-toe there. I haven't quite seen that, and I also haven't seen the confidence yet. Gee, Bunny, I want to see him much more aggressive on this Fernando in the back line. I just don't know what I'm looking at here as far as the strategy for how they're looking to attack Virtus Pro. And you know what? They're running out of time, Gore.
I mean, at this point, it's coming up over the last hill. Everyone from Splyce is standing on their balcony looking as teammates left and right are falling down. One more hit, and Vane's going to go down, and that's a double kill for Bordeaux.
And just like that, Virtus Pro, with smiles across the board, win game 1. Splyce don't have an answer, at least not one that they can find, and I certainly don't see what they're going to do from here. It is not looking good for the North Americans. They have, however, won their first match, so this is a winner's bracket match. No one's going home yet, but being dropped into the loser's bracket at this point in the tournament still doesn't make you feel good. A lot of good teams still around, and then it would be do or do not and go home if you would lose 2 times in a row. So that's a pretty good way to start for VP, I'd say.
And at the tail end of that, we got to see a glimpse of, like, Splyce, the way they're feeling. I want to see more of that. I see one player, like, they're having their discussion, but you can still see 3 out of 5 are sitting there dejected, like, man, we lost. Like, get back into it. It's a winner's bracket top. Like, you have another chance, even if this doesn't go your way. Learn what you can, figure it out now.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how they bounce back. It's VP taking game 1 over Splyce.
Thanks, guys. Great job there in the first game on Bright Mars. VP take a pretty convincing one there, and I have to say it was all about the back line. And in my opinion, there was a much more noticeable split of the bubbles and the attention and the love and the care from Torvald this time around onto both Willow and not just Perdo all game.
Right, and I think that's one of the really big crucial things here, folks. I mean, I heard it, I think it was Evan say it on cast, Sheepa's just played more Paladins than you. Sheepa has just more experience than you know. Objectively is better in terms of their knowledge. The execution, the individual skill may not always be matched to other people. Every matchup like that is different, but Sheepa has game experience, which is just paramount. And that ability, that synergy, having these members back together, this core of Alvin, of Perdo, of Sheepa that have played together for so long, took a break, and now back in. It feels like that's the stability, that's the rock now, which is allowing Ninu to feel confident in doing crazy things like pulling off Willow mad double kills, or just allowing the Xin to go absolutely crazy. Not much pressure on a Surratt through that entire game either, which I think is what you want for your support in this situation.
11-1, 13-2, and 5-1 for that support, like you mentioned. But Ninu just continuing to impress me in the fact that he just puts his foot down in these games. He doesn't really care that he's a rookie to the spotlight, but like you mentioned, the kid's been around just forever.
Ninu used to play a lot of Ying back in the day, actually.
Yeah? Was
a bane of my existence. This was back when Ying wasn't necessarily the, you know, cute and cuddly healer you know her as now. This is when Ying fragged folks, and this is all Temple Isle maps, but difficult to deal with, very, very frustrating to play against at times because, again, it's that game experience which we're talking about here. Being a part of the scene for so long, know the mechanics inside and outside, upside down their head. All different orientations that you can imagine under the sun, Nick.
My question to you, Vox, is it time to shelf Talus? Because I feel like when you look to take him away, and I think that's what happened here, so that Virtus Pro couldn't get him and pair him with Torvald, there is too much, whether it's the Willow, whether it's the Xin, whether it's an Androxus, there's too much else that could pair with him. Unless you are absolutely confident and almost love the champion and love to play it, it just doesn't feel like it's really getting the job done.
I don't think that Talus has won a single map at Bright Marsh either, folks. I'll have to check that behind the scenes in a little bit.
I think you're wrong on something there.
I think that Talus on Bright Marsh just straight up doesn't work. I mean, one of the things about Bright Marsh is that it helps if you have this split verticality, but Talus doesn't have much mid-range pressure. That's the really big thing for me. You have Xin, who's able to peek and poke, who's so useful. You want burst champions on a map like Bright Marsh, really, who are able to utilize all the environmental cover here. And so many of these champions that are being picked, like the Talus, rely on just this consistent up-close and personal pressure and this tracking and stuff like that. Ricarda is known for playing a couple of different styles of champions, one of those being the snipers, the other being some interesting flanks more recently. I mean, Ricarda had that amazing Coca game on Ice Mines during the online phase. To be honest with you, Nick, I feel like Koga would have done better than Talus at this point.
And the thing about Talus for me as well, that's very cool, and we tested that out in an episode of the Armory, and let me tell you, it's fun. Look, it's a lot of fun.
You are a long boy. You can climb.
I'm a long boy. Okay, well, I mean, looking at Talus, though, I think it's tough to fight into a Xin, right? Where you mentioned there's a lot of immunity cooldowns. There's fighting into a Torvald, even when you do get like
burst, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to just land your damage.
Well, this is another thing, right? If you're fighting into a Torvald, one of the things which you might want more than in terms of damage types is more than consistent damage. Like there's little trickle from Talus, even though it can come as a torrent at times. Just big burst, just pop the bubble. Just even if you don't kill the champion, just get that bonus damage off them. It's what champions like Cassie excel at so much. I mean, Vivian, again, even though she has trickle damage, if she picks Sap around, she still deals over 400 damage a shot to shields, right? And that's consistent, and that's a big issue for Torvald. But right now, we're not seeing many champions come through that can just deal with this threat in this set so far, whereas other teams have kind of found the counters.
Well, we'll be headed to Frog Isle map selection for game number 2. This is Splyce's map pick. And then we'll have the choice of either first or second pick as well.
And call first here.
I think it's time for them to step up to the plate and probably get Rukata on one of those snipers you began to mention.
Do Virtus Pro ban both of them, though? That's my big question. I mean, what are they letting go? What are Virtus Pro letting go with first pick open if they do ban both snipers?
So you said you called that Splyce were going to select to be first pick on this map. Why did you say that?
Because looking at the stats to the PPL online phase, teams almost exclusively select first pick.
Okay.
If it's their map,
on Frog House or on their map pick?
On their map pick, it's almost exclusively first pick. There are very few teams which choose not to do that, and this is something which is more trackable on those game 3, game 4, game 5s especially. They just need them, but let's look at the bans coming through so far. No snipers banned out whatsoever. We've got oh my goodness. I mean, what? You got Barak left as a frontline, and that's pretty much it at this point.
This is
you got
crazy.
Barak and Ash.
Is this time for 3 DPS?
This is going to have to be 3.
There's not enough front lines left.
You got Inara, Torvald banned, Khan and Makoa banned, Fernando drafted by Splyce. VP, if they want to do it, they go Barak and Ash here, and then Virtus, and then Splyce, they go. Do they pick double? They pick double sniper?
I don't know, man. This is going to get interesting. Virtus Pro clearly conversing about what they want to do here. They're into their bank time now as the decision is not clear. This is not a very typical ban phase. And because there are so few left, they are going like hotcakes. Ash and Fernando are taken away. And Leon as well. All the snipers still open.
And I think it's a little bit too early to pick those, right? Eevee is open and available. Nina will play it. You'll get demolished. So you've got to be careful, right? You can't do that a little bit early. The one thing that I'm wondering might come through here for Splyce is maybe a single frontline double support. They do have the opportunity to draft the Barak, although they know that Virtus Pro can dismantle anything that you try and do with deployables based on what we saw yesterday or the day before. They're still going to go with it.
They're going to Barak Ying here, dude?
I think they kind of can get away with it at this point. Even if Virtus Pro draft Grok with the Fernando shield in addition, you've got a lot of things which can block the shock pulses.
True.
And that can be pretty valuable here. Although Virtus Pro, oh god, Sheepa playing
the only thing I would
say
to that is most of the time I would imagine this Fernando is going to be playing like he was yesterday. He's going to be playing on the stairs. He's not going to be in a position, I don't think, to peel these shock pulses or block most of them away.
Agreed. So they'll go with the Maldamba. They'll play it safe.
They'll pick it over the Ying as well. Maldamba is locked in for Splyce. Why do you think we see the... It's hard to say prioritization of, but Ying has far and away been the more popular support.
So I'm going to make a bit of a predictive call right here. Virtus Pro have already drafted the Leon, right? And on an open map like Frog Isle, it's much more easy for you to apply the Death and Taxes anti-heal with abilities like Valor than it is on a closed map. So without as many line of sight breaks, you just lose a little bit of Ying efficacy here.
Very aggressive frontline here from Virtus Pro.
Oh, Ruckus exists. Ruckus is a frontline.
Ruckus is indeed.
That's a good point. I've forgotten about that. Ruckus more typically played like a bit of a bruise, like a damage.
Sure.
Most of the time.
Absolutely.
Really damage with, you know,
both of these frontliners really will be. There is a lot of bruisability, is the word I'm going to just go ahead and make up for this situation. And Kanessa will be hovered. Splyce looking to get Rukata on one of these champions that can pop off. She has the ability to Vox. I know you hate it, but it is going away. One shot Ying, one shot Leon.
Oof.
And land, I think, pretty consistent headshots onto Ruckus. He's not too bad in terms of difficulty to hit.
Oh, I love this as well. Shadow on Eevee to close things out. That preemptive, go on, pick Strix, I dare you. So what do Virtus Pro look at in response here? They need some flank pressure.
Cassie, maybe?
They could go for a Cassie, they could go for long range damage. I honestly want to see a Xin again. Like I said, Yomi on Frog Isle is actually one of the few flank choices which does make a lot of sense beyond Eevee, because you can just swing it up towards snipers, slap them for, you know, 940, 970, and it's super effective.
Might be what they go to here, being hovered. And would it be Ninu playing it this time, you imagine, since Perdo
Oh, that's a really good
Probably
yeah,
more likely to be on
I would
Leon.
imagine Proto playing the Leon. The Androxus on Frogile, oh god.
Either or, man. I'm happy to get any.
I'm going to say absolutely not. I think that the Androxus on Frogile is... So here's the issue with Andro on Frogile.
Okay.
There's a lot of open space. Andro is very squishy. Kinessa deal big damage.
Okay.
Somebody call Edgen, please. I need Edgen to be watching this game. Please let Proto show them how it's done.
Simply put, and I can just see on his screen there, it is going to be Perdo playing this Androxus as we load into game, and Ninu will be taking up arms as the Leon most likely. What I do like about this Virtus Pro composition is they have that Ying ultimate, the Illusory Rift combined with Andro, combined with Ashe, combined with Ruckus. There is potential for Virtus Pro to hit Splyce so fast, so hard, I have no idea how they will respond. It's time for Game 2, ladies and gentlemen. Let's throw it over to our casters and get it on.
Well, to answer that question, they may respawn with a respawn. Back to base, they could go. Frog Isle and the drums beaten as we see the oceanside view for a while. Rain Day and Gormizer here to cast Game 2 of Virtus Pro and Splyce. I like Splyce's lineup. I like it.
I think it's going to be interesting, and it's the one thing that stands out to me. It's a Splyce pickup, right? It's not, hey, we're playing what's meta. Hey, we're playing the standard. This is, we're going to grab Kinessa because we know we're good with it. We're going to grab the Eevee because we know we can play it. And we're going to go to Frog Isle and just hope for the best. Unfortunately, you are up against Virtus Pro again.
Already.
This is going to be difficult.
Already, Perdo is one shot, man. Shadow's going in. And there's the reversal. Can he find the kill? He's looking for the mid-air shots. That was a golden opportunity, but Perdo a little too fast for that. And now look at this Ninu with a great area control. He doesn't want to give this wormhole spot over to Shadow so easily. And slowly but surely, Elven Path is pushing them back. And this is getting Perdo in lethality range. G-Bunny, though, finds Ninu. And now Perdo, he's in trouble. Abyssal Touch? No. Did he not hit it, or is he not running it? That's the question mark. He doesn't have his dashes yet, so he is in a little bit of trouble. He is running it. It just must not have hit, potentially. Or did hit, and the reset wasn't available just yet. He's got the dashes, but he's got to be careful. Ricotta doesn't see him trying to hide, and he, look at that, preemptively holds the reversal, and they will make it out back to safety.
60% picked up. Virtus Pro have just been sitting on the point the entire time, and that's going to be the downside. You need Ricotta to be able to find a lot, but G-Bunny, Elven Path both going down, so you lose a front line on either side, and now Shadow is gone.
Yeah, that was the problem there. Virtus Pro, you know, the thing that they have going for them is there's just the factor of Splyce have to do stuff, otherwise Virtus Pro pretty much win this one, because the Ying, the Ruckus, they're tanky, they have burst. Elven Path controls the left side, no problem. He's got more health than anybody in the game right now playing, and so it's a very, very difficult situation, and just this anti-heal plus the clean, easy pickup of damage from Grace and Valor makes it tough for Shadow.
And it's that moment of Ricotta being there on this Kinessa, finding good shots, not converting a lot of it into kills, though, and that's where the issues start to crop up. Again, poke only matters so much if you can really finalize it. Both the healing, the Ying on the side of Virtus Pro, especially with the ult being popped, there's not a lot to worry about. Look at Perdo's health!
And he almost goes down. But here's where the Ruckus comes into play. Look at that, Sheepa! Oh man, Perdo and Sheepa looking like Perdo and Sheepa of old a little bit here, making big plays, working in tandem. And these two just seem unstoppable here. Going back to the Founders Tournament, these two have been winning championships. G-Bunny forced into an Immortal, and unfortunately, Ricotta forced back into his base. This looks very, very devastating for Splyce.
Being able to find these shots, these kills, everything going in favor. There's still a minute left on this push. Virtus Pro don't look like they need it, though. Shadow forcing the ice block. Ricotta looking for some shots, but not going to be able to find too much. And everyone just falls or falls back.
Yeah, and you know what? Although I love that Splyce are going for it, it hasn't worked out. Hasn't worked out, and maybe it's these little things, but they have not been able to get to the back line. That's been continuous in Brightmarsh. That's been continuous here in this game. And Elven Path has just controlled this right side. G-Bunny's felt so hesitant to me. I mean, I love the fireball, but Elven, look at where Elven Path is. I want to see G-Bunny in that back line. And I can't think of any other reason otherwise than it's just maybe too much respect being given.
305, 303, 009 for Surratt's, like a really good round. 3 members undying overall. Ricotta has no kills. Ricotta has 18,000 damage, so he's been able to get a lot of good hits again, but you're not converting it into anything. It seems very kind of confused on the side of Splyce as well. what items to go into. Tier 1 morale boost, Tier 1 wrecker. So you're not getting a full Tier 2 item. That might just be because the economy, the round went by so fast you couldn't afford anything.
Wow, and now look at the shield up already. I mean, Elven Path is just setting the tone, and this has been the difference for me. The captain play from Elven Path. Beautiful catch of the fireball there, and G-Bunny back to base without even playing. Unfortunate for Splyce here. It doesn't look good for them, and, you know, as Nick said this in the Zagat Talent Gaming and Cryptic matchup, it would be unfortunate to call a game early. It does not look possible, at least with my eyes right now, for Splyce to make a big comeback. 84% and counting. It's going to be a difficult one. G-Bunny gets onto the point, but a Hexafire eliminates Shadow immediately, and that Dome Shield. Is it enough, Core?
I mean, it's going to be able to stall at least a little bit. Not long enough. G-Bunny, Vayne both still going to be going down. Sheepa decides to jump in right after Elven Path, but
wow.
I mean, there's no one really left. Splyce is pretty much all dead. Everyone either, again, fell back or was killed off and outright. So being able to set that up, I like the effort getting in there. It's not always the way we see teams go for it. They don't always want to jump onto the point. They know they're going to die, so they don't risk it. You try, at least in the terms of Splyce. Unfortunately, it doesn't amount to anything, but you at least attempt it.
You know what? You know, this is one of those moments where you know that there's a lot to do. If anyone said that Splyce was better than Virtus Pro, you probably would ask, you know, where have you been? And
have you been there for literally any of the PPL?
Yeah, have you seen anything in Paladins esports ever? And so I don't think anyone was thinking that. Splyce, could they make a run? Sure, but I think we all were expecting it to somehow come out of the losers bracket. I don't think anybody expected Virtus Pro to fall here, maybe only to Fnatic. And Ricotta Shadow finally finding a couple of kills. Might be their first of the day in this game on Frog Isle. And a little bit of stabilization here. It's not all over yet, but it's close.
Elven Path managing to find, I think, 3 overall in that last engagement. Perdo does get Dread Serpented away, but Aspect using that for only 1 person as the rest of Virtus Pro is now approaching. So's the payload. So that's going to open up a lot of room for them, forcing ults left and right. Splyce do not feel confident.
I mean, Vayne is in trouble here, and he knows that Cheap has just been barreling down with the damage. And Shadow needs to get involved. I don't know who, but the target prioritization from Shadow needs to drastically adjust so that they can have a little bit of respite. And Elven Path has just created so much space, and G-Bunny has ceded all of the ground. They need Vayne or him to push forward to give room for this Kinessa. The sniper needs the range, and right now, look at that. Ricotta's getting aggressive. He goes into the back line. We're not looking at the sniper right now, but she is flanking, essentially, and I don't know if this is going to work out. It seems like he's trying to do anything at land. He knows this is his only chance to really make an impression. But unfortunately, Virtus Pro snatch it from his hands. No flanking sniper getting highlights today. It's all VP. Business as usual.
I mean, that one was surgical.
Elven Path just smacked the camera.
It is a different sight to see when Splyce go into that. And I still appreciate their draft. I think their draft was something that was perfect for them.
Yeah.
It's just they never were able to get it rolling. At the very beginning, a couple of really good shots come out, and then they lose pressure. And like you said, they were never aggressive. They never got into the zone where they could actually push out and potentially zone out Virtus Pro. They were just always ceding that space.
I really enjoyed, you know, this matchup. It was a great showcase of Virtus Pro. They're still doing well. Ricotta and the rest of the boys of Splyce have some things to work on, but they have time to work on it. They're going to the losers bracket. VP, move on. Send it back to the desk to break down the end of day 3.
Thank you, Evan and Vox. That was a pretty quick one. Not a lot of game time there when it's all said and done, but VP kind of looking like they have 3 world champion runner-ups on that squad. They made
no kidding.
quick work of them.
You know what? I want to make a quick comparison to something that we saw at, this was the Invitational, not even the World Championship of this year. It was unbelievable playing a sub for District 69. He used to do a thing where they jump up onto the payload as Ruckus and pop Hexafire just to get it through. Because who can stand in front of that? And there's no way you can hide.
Pretty much no
Can't
one.
even hide behind the payload. What happens right at the end of that game? Just jump up on Ruckus, get out the big guns.
That's what they were about, man. They were about the pressure, and that's what I got to commend from Virtus Pro. It's an awesome thing to watch when you see a composition draft and you're like, this would be really good at doing this, and then they get in a game and they do exactly that. Never giving Splyce a moment to draw a breath.
Feels good, right? And there are a few things which you could see that Splyce could potentially do that would have been useful there. I mean, they drafted the Fernando Barrack. They got a pretty strong core of frontline. The Maldamba reliable sustain. And then Kinessa and Eevee, neither of those are consistent damage. Kinessa is really the finisher or the I'm going to find a lucky kill onto somebody. And then there's the Eevee who's the anti-flank pressure. But really, who is the EV going to flank out of Leon, the Ying, the Ruckus, the Andro, the Ashe? There was really nothing that they could do. And I mean, look at that stat line set right there.
8-0. You commend Chipa as he does go deathless. One of the few deathless complete games we have seen this event. Incredible stuff from him. Good to see him take back the reins
Ying
and
healing,
take
by the
this
way.
top damage in the entire game as well. 102,000 Surrettes. I mean, was it worth it to grab that Maldamba over the Ying? Splyce had the opportunity to.
They were worried about the Grok, and I think that actually part of what we were seeing in the damage numbers is that Knessa would get a shot into somebody, and they go behind a cover and heal up, right? And that's 1,200 healing every single time Knessa shoots somebody and isn't able to achieve the kill. And same thing with Eevee. Eevee was being cannoned out so hard, partially by the Androxus. This is a really interesting thing. We had a look at the loadout for Andro in that first round break between point 1 and point 2.
Yeah.
One of the most important things that was in their loadout was through the warp 4, so you're increasing the dash distance of Andro by 40%. Andro has a reputation for not being great on Frog Isle because there's so much open space and can be easily shut down and countered if you have like more consistent damage in the mid range. So you're looking at the Cassie, the Leon, but against the Knessa, against an Eevee, against a team that doesn't zone out on Andro who just walks up to you on their mount, you can close the gap so easily, and that made the difference here.
Well, it felt good to have all that pressure, and a big part of the reason that Virtus Pro had that pressure was the man himself, the Steel Series MVP. He locks it down and doesn't die the entirety of Game 2. Chipa takes top damage to boot. He absolutely slayed it on the Ruckus there. It was an incredible performance from him. You saw some really cool moves, getting up to some unique vantage points, and you mentioned very, very strong Hexa-firing.
And this is one of the reasons I think that you can probably go
Look
ahead
at
and
that damage.
You can excuse me for not thinking that Ruckus is a frontline after a game like
Yeah.
this, because this is Ruckus being played just as a damage, and that was one of the things about Virtus Pro's comp, right, is they have the Ashe and they have the Ruckus. They
Yeah.
have two of the most consistently and just aggressive front lines in terms of sheer raw damage numbers in game. We've seen an Anara top frag today, and that's impressive, but I mean the Ashe and the Ruckus, they just don't stop firing. The damage is so consistent there, and it is so difficult to deal with. Aggression from all points compared to really reliance on the Eevee and the Knessa from Splyce. Consistency is key in Virtus Pro. They take the set.
Well, very, very aggressive stuff from the boys of VP. Congratulations to them. We're going to throw it over to a little post-game interview with the veterans from D69.
Well, congratulations, guys, on your wins. That's 2 in a row now, and next you're going to be going up against Fnatic. So I'm just kind of curious, how are you feeling about your first 2 wins, and how do you feel about going forward in the winners bracket?
The answer to both questions is good.
Great. A man of many words, Elvin Path. We know you like to speak a lot, and Perdo and Chipa just kind of there for the brawn. He's got the arms crossed, and then the looks, of course. Chipa, I said, did you get taller? Still the same height, but just definitely out there a little bit more. This is the first time we've seen D69 in their origin back together again. I'm sure that's why you all three are here. And how does it feel just in the hotel, hanging out, just finally the boys are back at LAN again?
Do I answer for them? It feels good for me. I don't know about them.
Yeah.
Well, I get we all enjoy being together, of course. I mean, not just with them, but obviously with the 2 newcomers. Although one of our newcomers likes to stay alone a bit too much, but it's whatever.
Put him on blast. Who is it? Who is it? Put him on blast.
Of course, it's Sarets. He just locks himself up in a room and he never leaves.
Maybe he's playing solitaire. We saw some Jenga, some Monopoly being
No.
played.
He's watching TV.
He's watching TV.
He's just hanging out watching
In the
TV.
bed.
So it's been, we mentioned it, it's been a while since you guys have been able to come to LAN, and about a year ago now you actually were winning the fall split LAN. How does it feel coming through and having the run that you've had, especially after a pretty successful fall split?
It feels very good to be back on LAN for me, and I guess for the boys too. I think we kind of dropped this going to LAN thing about at the same time, and it was very sad. I was missing, I'm sure they were missing as well, but now we're here, and we all know that D69 or VP were never an online team, so we will see where this takes us.
That's true. That is very true. Obviously, you're going to be going up against the other 2 members who were part of that original roster in Fnatic next. Any thoughts about heading into that matchup? Is it just business as usual, or is there anything you've been preparing?
Well, you see, I think that 3 D69 members is better than 2 D69 members.
It's just good math right there.
But no, seriously though, we're all looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. We saw their game with Kanga today, and it was very, very exciting. And I'm expecting something like this happening on Friday as well, and really pumped for this.
Awesome. Well, a day to prepare, day to rest, hopefully hang out with the teammates and get ready for a big matchup against Fnatic. That's Virtus Pro winning yet again. Moving on in the winner's bracket, we'll send it back to the desk to finish out the day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, too.
Thank you so much, Evan. It certainly was an incredible day of action. A lot of great matchups going across the board. Some of them going very quickly like the sets we just saw. Some of them going almost entirely the distance like we had with Kanga and Fnatic. The boys in orange and black, the battle as you mentioned it. Let's head over to the bracket and take a look at what we have got up on the docket. Like Elvin Path was so kind to mention, that Fnatic VP matchup I believe will be taking place on Friday because we have a lot of scores to settle. Not only in the winner's bracket, we've got Big Egos and Space Station, Sour Team, and Armada still needing to fill out their tickets to the winners semifinals. But down below, we got plenty of action here brewing in the losers bracket. Splyce and Renegades, Kanga and Cryptic. A lot of awesome matchups coming at you, and those will be what we are taking part in tomorrow.
Lots to come, folks, and we have a lot of questions as well, just from what's being seen, what's being played. As you can see the schedule up on screen right there in front of you. Obviously, we need to determine those losers match 14 and 13 players as we see those filled out through the day. But I got a few questions. First of all, will we see more than 24 picks? Kanessa, the first new champion today, played for the first time at this point. Will Inara Kana Makoa see less than 100% pick ban rate, with Khan currently leading the charts in win rate at 58%? And will Maldamba make a comeback right now? Ying and Maldamba pick 96% of the time, Grover, of course, being that flex pick around there, as well as Grok in terms of support picks. But Ying with a 75% win rate and Maldamba with 29.
That's really interesting that you mentioned the Khan win rate with being so high, because he really had a poor win rate during the online phase.
Yeah, and absolutely yesterday, or earlier today, they just didn't look good. Yesterday, they didn't look good. Khan sort of brought themselves back in again. Day 1, they finished at 80%, 50% after day 2, now back up at 58%. Will we see that continue to rise, or maybe we'll see that counted out? As you know, Torvald is the really interesting one here as well. 88% pick ban rate, 28.5 win-loss. They are the most banned champion throughout every point of the competition up until now. They're looking like they're being found out and dismantled.
Well, guys, food for thought here. The stats being brought to you live by Mr. Hugh Judson himself.
About the Paladins.
True facts, none spoken. Beautiful stuff there. It's going to be a very exciting event for you guys as we move on. A lot of great action. Thank you from all of us here for following along today. The action will resume same time, same place tomorrow. Big thanks to all of our sponsors. Of course, production, great job on the cast, Rain Day, and Gormizer from all of us here at Skillshot Media. Thank you, and good night.
HRX is brought to you by Hi-Res Studios, iNap, Mixer, Alienware, and Skillshot.